I now have the high honor of introducing our Rewriting the Sentence 2009 Summit Chair, the Honorable Bernice Donald, United States Circuit Court Judge for the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. Judge Donald was appointed in 2011 by President Obama and was approved by the Senate by a vote of 96-2. Judge Donald, we'd like to know who those two senators were. After serving for decades on both the federal and state benches, because of her deep commitment to the dignity of every person who comes before her, Judge Donald is the perfect leader and role model for this summit. She has distinguished herself in this role by her obvious passion and her endless willingness to engage and add dimension to the program. Judge Donald is a visionary who works relentlessly to improve our criminal justice system. Judge Donald, we are deeply appreciative of the countless hours and the tireless effort you've invested in this summit. It has truly been our honor to work with you in bringing together this incredible group of leaders and stakeholders. God bless you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We welcome you to this Rewriting the Sentence Summit, where all of us as stakeholders are renewing our commitment to equal justice under law. What we're really trying to do is eradicate any and every barrier that might stand between the goal of equal justice. Now that calls upon us to revisit what is justice. And sometimes the constraints under which we work, as you've heard Rabbi Lipsker say, lead to situations that do not sound injustice. Everyone in here has an obligation as a stakeholder in the justice system to work towards equal justice under law. I want to just tell you we have an exciting time planned, but this will only be as exciting and effective as you deem appropriate, because it'll depend in large part upon your contribution and your participation. I know that we take an oath as judges to do a job. And in doing that job, and we take an oath as prosecutors, we all have a job to do. What we're asking, as the rabbi said, is to look at the larger system and find out if in that job we're sworn to do, there are things we can do better that lead us to justice. One of the examples that I believe I shared in 2016 was a case that was in my court. A man, when I was much younger, he would have been elderly, but now that I am where I am, it was just a man, okay? Who had, he was paranoid, schizophrenic, and bipolar. He was living in the community. He went off of his medications, and as people are wont to do, he went in the community and got involved in activity and conduct that landed him actually in jail. But his route there was unusual because he was out there doing things that we don't condone. He was drinking liquor and smoking crack, and he'd been doing this for 5 or 6 days and not taking his medication. But on the 7th day, he called the police helpline and said, "Help. I need to get to the hospital. I'm afraid if I don't, I could end up hurting someone." Judge Adams, the police came to get him. And when they came to get him, he had a small bag of things he had picked up on the street. And they told him, as good police officers, "We need to check that bag before we take you to the hospital, because we need to make certain there's nothing in there to hurt you, us, or the people at the hospital." And so they dumped the contents of the bag on the squad car. And in that bag, there was one .45 caliber bullet. No gun, but one bullet. They took him to the hospital, and he was committed. And they took the bullet, Judge Blessing, ultimately to a federal prosecutor. And in due course, he was indicted. He went to trial, And he didn't have Doris Holt representing him, so he was convicted. And the guideline in that case was 15 years to life. 15 years was the mandatory minimum, where the person called the police and said, "Help, I need to go to the hospital. I'm afraid if I don't, I could end up hurting someone." When we talk about justice, we have to ask ourselves, how in a situation like that does a 15-year sentence where somebody pleads for help, how can that be defined as justice? Now, I know that the prosecutors don't write the laws, they don't set the ranges, nor do the judges. But all of us are part of a system, and we need to take these examples and look at the people who are giving us the law so that they understand how these laws are actually applied and how they impact. I'm sure that Congress never meant for a one-bullet situation for a felon to end up in a sentence like that. And I will tell you, the sad thing is that even though I didn't give him the 15 years because I wanted it to be appealed, because I wanted somebody to take a look at this, before he served the sentence that I gave him, and before the appeal could be perfected, he died. Rabbi Lipska talks to you about the children, because the sentence that we impose don't just affect the defendants, they affect whole families. Professor Hagan at Northwestern University, working with the CDC, they have generated statistics that say children of incarcerated parents are at higher risk of a range of negative health outcomes relative to the general population. They have higher incidences of asthma, allergies, hypertension, bronchitis, HIV/AIDS, and a whole range of things. But the more startling thing is that children of incarcerated parents have a much lower level of completing high school and going on to college than do children in the general population. So it's in the pretty low double digits when it comes to the father going to prison. But when it talks about the mother going to prison, the number of children who go on to graduate high school and go to college come down to the single digits. That has enormous potential and outcomes for our whole society. So if we look at reasons why all of us should be involved, it's not a matter of people pleading for more lenient sentences. I think we have to look at who should be sentenced to what, and what are the other opportunities that are available to us to look at things that really are effective in making the punishment fit the crime, and looking back at the true aims of sentencing. We need to consider everything, including restorative justice. So today we're going to talk about a range of things. And finally, in my last 15 seconds, I want to tell you that we're also going to talk about the role that implicit bias plays, sometimes in sentencing determinations, in sentencing outcomes, and in classifications. So I want to thank you again for being here. It's going to take all of us, the entire village, to rewrite the sentence. And I hope today you will each renew your commitment to rewriting the sentence. Thank you.